The doll's whisper, it began on an autumn evening when the sky bled fiery hues and a cold wind carried whispers through the pines. In a quiet village on the edge of an ancient forest, a little girl named Eliza disappeared without a trace. Her laughter, once a daily symphony in the home of her devoted parents, was silenced in a single, heart-wrenching moment. The search parties combed the woods, and every corner of the town buzzed with anxious rumors. But all that remained was an overwhelming void where hope once dwelled. 3 days after her disappearance, on the very border of the woods where the trees grew twisted and time itself seemed to slow, Eliza's parents made a discovery that would haunt them forever. Amid the fallen leaves and tangled underbrush lay a decrepit, eerie doll. His porcelain face was cracked and worn, and its glassy eyes seemed to follow every hesitant step. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than an abandoned relic of childhood play. Yet, as the parents drew near, a chilling realization took hold. The doll bore an uncanny resemblance to their lost daughter. That fateful night, the house became a theater of whispered secrets and unexplained sounds. A soft lullaby drifted through the halls, and tiny footsteps crept in the silence of midnight. Shadows moved where none should exist. It was as if the doll had become a vessel, pulsating with a hidden, inexplicable life. In the dim glow of the moonlight filtering through dusty windows, the parents' hearts pounded with the dual emotions of dread and desperate hope. Days bled into nights as the parents struggled to reconcile the impossible. Could this doll, once an inert toy, be the embodiment of their daughter? The father, a man known for his steadfast nature, fought to suppress the terror clawing at his heart. The mother, her eyes glistening with both sorrow and fierce determination, clutched the doll as if it were the only tether to her lost child. With every creak of the floorboards and every rustle in the dark, the mystery deepened. Unable to shake the feeling that some dark force was at play, the couple sought answers from an old local legend. They turned to Maribel, a reclusive woman who had long been whispered about in hushed tones as a keeper of the forest's ancient lore. In her ramshackle cottage at the edge of the village, filled with dried herbs and cryptic symbols, Maribel recounted a tale as old as the forest itself, a tale of a child chosen by the wilds to serve as a guardian of its hidden secrets. According to Maribel, long ago a pact had been struck between the forest and those who dwelled near its borders. In times of great need, when the human heart was tested by unbearable grief or insurmountable fear, the forest would reclaim one of its own. Child, touched by an otherworldly force, would return not as they once were, but transformed into a living bridge between the realms of light and shadow. The doll was not simply an object. It was a physical manifestation of that ancient magic. Emboldened by both love and despair, the parents embarked on a journey deep into the forest, following trails only whispered about in legends. Their path wound between towering trees whose gnarled branches clawed at the sky and over moss-covered rocks that bore the weight of centuries. The forest seemed to watch them, its silence pregnant with hidden meanings and untold secrets. At the heart of the wilderness, in a clearing bathed in the silver glow of a full moon, they discovered a crumbling stone altar. Ancient carvings depicted a cycle of sacrifice and rebirth, a narrative that mirrored their own unfolding tragedy. Clutched in the trembling hands of the mother, the doll began to change. Its cold, lifeless exterior softened, and an inner light started to emanate from within, casting surreal shadows on the weathered stones around them. In that charged moment, when time itself appeared to hold its breath, a faint sound of giggles and whispered words stirred in the crisp air. The doll, almost imperceptibly at first, seemed to quiver with life. The father's voice, firm yet trembling with emotion, broke the silence. "Eliza, is it really you?" The response was a delicate, almost otherworldly murmur, a mixture of her familiar laughter and the echo of something ancient. Slowly, the doll's transformation unfolded. The delicate features of a porcelain mask melted away to reveal a face both tender and profoundly changed. There stood Eliza, her eyes holding the innocence of childhood, yet shimmering with the wisdom of the forest's oldest secrets. She spoke in a voice that was both her own and resonant with echoes of the past. "I have wandered where no one dares, and I have seen wonders and terrors beyond imagining. The forest called to me, and I answered its cry. In that clearing, beneath a watchful gaze of ancient trees and a luminous moon, the family faced a choice that defied logic. Could they accept the daughter who had returned, not as the same fragile child they once knew, but as a guardian woven with the magic of the woods? With hearts heavy yet full of unwavering love, they embraced her, understanding that sometimes the bonds of family are strong enough to transcend even the most profound metamorphoses. In the days that followed, the village whispered of a miracle and a curse intertwined. Eliza's presence, a blend of tender childlike wonder and the enigmatic aura of the forest, became a living legend. Some nights, she would vanish into the shadows, drawn back to the depths of the ancient woodland where her other self had been forged. Yet, each time she returned, her eyes glistened with both the memories of a lost innocence and the secrets of a realm that few dared to understand. The story of the doll that was not merely a doll, but a daughter reborn, resonated deeply with those who had suffered loss. It served as a timeless reminder that in the interplay between light and darkness, love has the power to reclaim what was thought to be lost forever. And so, amid the rustle of leaves and the murmur of old tales, the legacy of Eliza endured, a testament to the transformative magic that lies hidden in the whispers of the woods. Even as years passed and the seasons painted the forest in endless cycles of decay and renewal, the tale of the missing girl and the living doll continued to be told. It was a story of fear, mystery, and the relentless strength of a parent's love, a story that blurred the lines between horror and hope, challenging every notion of what it means to be truly alive. The midnight revelry under a silvered moon and amidst the whisper of autumn winds, the old neighborhood of Blackwood Crescent beckoned with secrets and centuries-old charm. New residents, Emily and Thomas, had only just moved into the creaking Victorian house at the end of the lane, a building whose history was as deep as the cobblestone streets that wound through the district. Unbeknownst to them, this relocation would mark the beginning of an encounter that would forever blur the lines between myth and reality. A mysterious invitation, it was a cool October evening when the first hint of mystery arrived. As Emily sorted through the day's mail, a peculiar envelope caught her eye. The envelope was crafted of thick, aged parchment, sealed with a deep crimson wax bearing an intricate emblem. In elegant, looping script, the invitation read, "Dear neighbors, join us this All Hallows Eve for a celebration of the eternal and the extraordinary. Your presence is requested at our humble abode on Blackwood Crescent. Yours in timeless friendship, the residents." Thomas, equally intrigued and slightly amused, suggested it was nothing more than an eccentric neighbor's welcome. Yet, as the night grew deeper, so too did their curiosity, prompting them to mark their calendars for the mysterious gathering. The arrival at the party when Halloween night finally arrived, Blackwood Crescent transformed into a realm caught between dreams and nightmares. Lanterns flickered in the windows of aged mansions, casting elongated shadows that danced along the walls, while autumn leaves whispered secrets of the past. Emily and Thomas, dressed in their finest yet modest costumes, made their way along the winding path to the indicated address, a grand manor that had long been the subject of local lore. The manor's towering oak doors swung open as if by enchantment. They were greeted by a host whose smile was both welcoming and enigmatic. In the softly lit foyer, the air was heavy with the scent of spiced mulled wine and ancient incense. Portraits of stern-looking ancestors, whose eyes seemed to follow every move, lined the walls. It was in this setting that Emily and Thomas first noticed something unusual about their hosts, a subtle, almost otherworldly pallor and eyes that glimmered with the faintest hint of midnight. Revelations over the evening. As the night unfolded, the true nature of the party began to reveal itself. The other guests, an eclectic mix of longtime residents, exuded an elegance that belied their age. Their conversation was laced with references to times long past, of eras when legends roamed freely and the night was governed by unspoken rules. In one intimate corner of the grand parlor, a gentleman in a finely tailored cape introduced himself as Victor. With a voice as smooth as velvet, he spoke of the manor's storied history and the ancient lineage of those who dwelled within its walls. "We are, in many ways, custodians of a forgotten time," Victor confided, his eyes glinting in the candlelight. "Our lives have been intertwined with the ebb and flow of centuries. Tonight, you become part of that story. It was then that Emily and Thomas realized the truth. Their gracious hosts were not merely eccentric neighbors, but vampires, creatures of myth who had walked the earth far longer than any mortal could fathom. Yet, despite their supernatural nature, the vampires exuded an undeniable warmth. Their immortal existence was not a curse, but a different way of embracing life, one filled with art, music, and stories that spanned ages. Tales of the past, gathered around a long, polished table laden with an array of delicacies both modern and archaic, the vampires regaled their guests with tales of bygone eras. One elderly woman, known simply as Madame Celeste, recounted stories of grand balls held in opulent halls and secret rendezvous beneath starlit skies. Her narrative was rich with details of lost loves, clandestine meetings, and the bittersweet weight of immortality. As she spoke, the room seemed to transport itself to an age of splendor and sorrow where every whispered word held the promise of mystery. Another guest, a suave and debonair fellow named Lucien, told of his travels through exotic lands and encounters with historical figures whose names were etched in the annals of time. His stories, punctuated with laughter and a hint of melancholy, hinted at adventures that spanned continents and centuries. For Emily and Thomas, each tale was a portal to a world they had only ever imagined in fiction. Embracing the extraordinary throughout the evening, the boundaries between the ordinary and the extraordinary melted away. The vampire's true nature, while initially startling, soon became a bridge connecting Emily and Thomas to a lineage of human experience that transcended time. The party was not a threat, but a celebration of life in all its forms, mortal and immortal alike. As the night drew to a close, the guests gathered in the manor's ancient courtyard, where the crisp night air carried a promise of renewal. The vampires raised their glasses of a deep, ruby-red liquid that sparkled in the moonlight. In that moment, Emily and Thomas felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. They were no longer outsiders. They had become part of a grand tapestry woven from the threads of history, mystery, and a shared celebration of existence. A new chapter begins. The final moments of the evening were bittersweet. As the first hints of dawn crept over the horizon, the vampires bid their farewells with gentle smiles and knowing glances. "Remember," Victor whispered as he placed a hand on Thomas' shoulder, "in every shadow there is a story, and every night holds the promise of a new beginning." With hearts full of wonder and minds alight with possibilities, Emily and Thomas returned to their home, forever changed by the night's revelry. They had stepped into a world where the line between legend and reality blurred, where the past was not dead, but living on in every whispered tale and every shared smile. In Blackwood Crescent, even the most unexpected neighbors could turn an ordinary life into an extraordinary adventure, a lesson they would cherish for years to come. Shattered echoes 15 years ago, on a night swallowed by darkness and despair, a little girl named Isabella vanished without a trace. To the outside world, she had simply disappeared, leaving behind a family shattered by grief and mystery. But behind closed doors, in a secret too horrifying to share, her parents, Simon and Claire, harbored a terrible, unspoken truth. In a moment of paralyzing fear and twisted desperation, they had silenced their daughter's laughter forever. Now, on a stormy autumn evening, that buried past clawed its way back into their lives. The clock had barely struck midnight when the telephone rang, a sound that shattered the heavy silence of their lonely home. Simon's hand trembled as he reached for the receiver, and Claire's eyes, long accustomed to tears and regret, widened in dread. A voice, soft and melancholic, filled the space on the other end. "Mother. Father." It was a voice that carried both the innocence of a lost childhood and the weight of untold years. It was unmistakably Isabella's, yet changed, a deeper, older tone resonating with sorrow and a quiet, relentless determination. For a long, agonizing moment, Simon and Claire listened, paralyzed by the sound of their daughter's mature voice, a voice they had long silenced. The caller recounted memories that should have been hers, whispered recollections of bedtime stories and sunlit afternoons, of dreams that had once painted her world in vibrant hues. But those memories were now laced with an unyielding sadness, each word a reminder of the night when everything was lost. As the spectral conversation unfolded, The voice spoke of regret and longing, of a life that had been stolen away. It was as if Isabella's spirit had returned not to seek forgiveness in the usual sense, but to lay bare the truth of that dreadful night. She spoke of betrayal, the kind that goes beyond mere human failing, and of a darkness that had not only taken her life, but had also bound her parents in a web of guilt and terror. Simon's mind was a whirlwind of memories. The frantic pounding of his heart, the echo of hushed arguments turned to screams, and the relentless panic that had driven them to an irreversible act. Claire, her voice barely a whisper, recalled the fleeting moments of terror and the heavy silence that followed the irreversible mistake. Every word from the phone was a fresh cut, reopening wounds that had never healed. The call was more than just a voice from the past. It was a reckoning. Isabella's older self seemed to float between worlds, her tone both accusing and aching with the desire for closure. There was no comfort in her words, only the stark, unyielding reality of what had been done. It was as if the night's horrors had come back to demand that the sins of that long-ago moment be acknowledged, to force a confrontation with the buried secret that had tainted their souls. As the call drew to a close, the line fell silent, leaving Simon and Claire in a suffocating void of despair and dread. The sound of the dial tone echoed like a death knell, a reminder that some actions, once committed, refused to be forgotten. The couple sat in the darkness, the storm outside matching the tumult within. The rain hammered the windows as if trying to wash away their sins, but the truth remained, as indelible as scars etched in time. In that chilling moment, they realized that the past, no matter how deeply buried, would always find a way to return. The voice of their lost daughter was not a mere apparition. It was a relentless echo of guilt and an inescapable call to face the consequences of a decision made in the grip of fear. The haunting call had forced them to confront the fact that the darkness of that night had never truly left them. It lived on in every whisper, every silence, and every shattered echo of a once cherished life. And so, as the night wore on and the call faded into an eerie stillness, Simon and Claire were left with a truth that could not be denied. The secret they carried was a living nightmare, forever entwined with the sound of their daughter's voice, a voice that now, from the other side, demanded to be heard.